Then non-performance and non-productivity or misdemeanor related issues. So there are two aspects. Okay, non-productive and non-performance is one. Misdemeanor means misconduct. Okay, misconduct has a specific aspect. Misconduct means, okay, somebody has been unethical, somebody has abused somebody has performed an act of insubordination. What is insubordination? Your senior says you must do this by this time. Okay, one thing is you can say, okay, I think I can do it by this time, so let's do this. Second thing is that your senior says you should do this by this time. You say, I will do it whenever I want to. You are nobody to tell me when to do it by. Okay. That is what insubordination. Now, you cannot just call it insubordination and dismiss the employee. There has to be a proper proceeding for this. So if this has happened, now I'm saying there has to be a proceeding, right? That means that when the person said that, who are you to give me instructions? You want records. So you want to have the proper record of this with date, with copy. Then you may need to write, in this case, you may need to write an email saying that this is not okay. So that there's a counter record of this so that the employee is informed and is aware that this is not okay, right? Sometimes without disciplinary proceeding, you can give a warning or other letter. So you need to know that which letters I can do before disciplinary proceeding, which letters I can give after disciplinary proceeding. Okay, you need to know both of this. Okay, then so then the question becomes, how do I draft a warning letter? See, your warning letter can't give them a punishment, right? It has to be very lightly worded. Otherwise, if it becomes a punishment, they will say that this is wrong and they will go to court. Initiation of disciplinary proceedings at the right time. Okay, so you can't, when there's a proper violation, you got a record, at that time you want to initiate it. You don't want to sit on it. You don't want to initiate disciplinary proceedings for something that was done 6 months before, right? You want to do it, okay, it's done now. In the next 15 days, I have the record, initiate the disciplinary proceedings, get it done with, right? Administration of performance improvement programs. Here there is a legal aspect. I'll tell you what. You will say, I've put this person on PIP. And later, if the person doesn't improve, you will want to initiate termination for non-performance. A lot of times it's non-performance, not misconduct. Okay. Misconduct is something unethical, something violative of your code of conduct. Non-performance means just not performing up to the requirement. Okay, you have the right to terminate somebody. It doesn't require disciplinary proceeding. There's no disciplining you're doing. It is non-performance, right? So what will you do? In a performance improvement program, it is very easy for an employee to say that I was never aware of what I must do. I'm put on PIP, but I don't know what to do in this, right? So now what you want to do in the performance improvement program is you want to record a meeting minutes, which is signed by the employee, and it must say that the employee has received it. The employee may not agree. So if you do it wrong, what will happen is that you will not be able to record the proper letter, proper meeting memo won't be there. And you will try to say to the employee that agree to this. Okay, and the employee will say, I don't agree. Right? Many employees don't agree with the feedback they get, but you're the manager. So how do you actually do that? So what you want the sign for is the fact that the employee has received this and is aware of this, may not agree. Okay. If you position it like that, the kind of you will get the signature. So obtaining employee consent is very important. Communication. Now, this is one big problem that is happening in remote workspace, especially communication on social media about the company or an employee's work or some plan about the company without authorization, right? So one is two types of policies are there for this. Okay, one is a social media policy about what do you write on your personal account, but I can't control what an employee writes in the personal account, but I can control what the employee writes about the company and the work on the personal account. Second policy will be if press contacts you, which it will if there's a scandal. If by chance somebody finds you online, press will contact you. Then what do you say about the company? So two things are there. One is what do you say in your personal discretion. Second, what do you say about when the press contacts you? If you don't have a policy on this, you can expect all sorts of things to happen. Okay. Then question about negative reviews. A lot of companies are dealing with having very low rating on Glassdoor. Okay. Anonymous down bad rating. You don't know what to do. Right now, how do you control that? So what you need to do there is, there are two kinds of reviews. One is an opinion, and one is, actually tarnishing your reputation. People are free to share their opinions, but people are not free to malign you and destroy your reputation. Okay, they can say truly what happened as a matter of truth. Yeah, this happened to me, this is fact. But they cannot just say bad things about you, okay, without basis. But if they say that this is my opinion, then it is okay. Okay, and their personal opinion they can share. Then you need to create that with employees, that this is how you can share it. If you do it anonymously, I still can get your identity. There is law which allows me to go to that website who has posted the anonymous review, and through an order of the court I will come to know which was the person accessing the machine and who has created that account, because the website will have all the details. You have posted anonymously, but the website knows who posted it, right? So I'll get the details. So if you're posting something, please post responsibly. And if it is abusive or defamatory content, I will take proceedings. So then the employee knows I have to post responsibly, I have to share my opinion, I can't harm the organization's reputation, and I can't hide behind anonymity. Are these 3 points clear? So what does this require? It requires framing the right policies. It requires getting employee buy-in. You cannot throw things on employees, because then they will revolt. If it is a revolt situation, there is a problem for you. So getting buy-in. Now, when do you get buy-in? You get buy-in when your policies appear acceptable, reasonable, they protect your interest and they don't harm the employee, and before an adverse incident has happened. Before the employee is upset, long before the day they joined, they are aware of something. Now, after 3 months or after 2 years, they're upset, they are angry, but their buy-in was already there, so they will stick. They are more likely to operate within the rules you created. You do it too late, people will be like, now you're trying to cover up. So doing this at the right time, so framing the right policies, do communicating it. What does buy-in require? Communication, training, and clarification of doubts. After that, if people disagree, then you can always say that this is still binding on you. You need to do this. Your volume of disagreement will reduce or completely be eliminated. Okay, so framing the policy, doing the training, communicating it, okay, and clarifying any doubts. This is very important to get buy into any policy. If you just create one HR handbook, give a copy, say this is with the HR manager, come and inspect it, no buy. One thing not to miss out, you will have vendors, consultants, contractors. So you need to have, now one contractor may send workers to you, to somebody else. He can keep floating around workers, right? So you need to share this with contractors, with vendors, with consultants, that hello, these are our policies. If you want, you can administer tests for them on your, you can take a learning management system or an ERP, and administer tests to say that they have agreed to that. Okay. Usual policies. So for example, a policy like POSH, okay, under POSH, you're required to train your team about the sexual harassment law, what amounts to sexual harassment, how to report, all of that. Okay. Now, this is required to be done for even consultants or contractors who send people to you. Okay. Now, this is where it is important. Handling reputational damage. I cannot overemphasize. Okay. This is very, very important for HR professionals and HR managers to do. If you can step in here, okay, the organization will have a new level of respect for you. If you can handle reputational damage from any situation, whether it's a disciplinary proceeding gone wrong, whether it's a sexual harassment case, whether it is anything that's happened, reputational damage, if you can help out with handling that, it'll be great. How do you help that out? You have to issue correctives, you have to show that the organization had systems in place, okay, and we took the action. Like one example we give is that, in case of sexual harassment, for example, when does negative reputational damage happen? Not because sexual harassment complaint was filed. That's not the negative reputational damage. That is, you're supposed to have a way to deal with it. The reputational damage will happen when the complaint is not investigated, when nothing is done, when the ICC is not there, okay, when it is condoned, like when it is encouraged, or it is minimized. Minimized meaning no action is taken, it is ignored. Okay, but so having no complaint is not the thing. The question is that having a mechanism to deal with the problems means that the organization is separating itself from the problem. Okay, so if there's a problem, organization can deal with it. But when people say that the organization is the problem, then it's an issue. So reputational damage, always you have to separate the problem from the issue by saying that organization has taken these measures. This is what the law requires us to do. We've gone one step ahead. Okay, enforcement of your policies when there is a violation is very important. You know why? Because it enables other team members, other employees to see that the organization is clear about having these policies and rules. It is not a rule when you don't enforce it. So if you don't know enough drafting, enough law, okay, that means what's going to happen, you will not enforce. Sometimes management will say that why do we have to pay 20,000 to a lawyer for this notice? Okay, can you just do it? And then you'll be like, I can't, I don't know how to draft properly, then maybe a mistake I'll make, and then it'll slip. Now that's a big problem, because that means that it has slipped here, management won't notice, but one day you'll suddenly find that everybody is citing this one person's case where you didn't take action, and they want the same thing to happen. Okay, so that will create a problem, that which is why, how do you enforce? You give a notice referring to the policy and the employment contract, you specify the consequences, then you have to follow it up with legal proceeding. You can withdraw it anytime later, but you will need to follow the sequence till the employee comes back to you and says, okay, how do I repair the damage?